It's always mystified me how a handful of great actor-directors like Chaplin, Orson Welles, Clint Eastwood even, Jean Renoir, have done this multitasking of taking a leading part in a film and direct themselves at the same time. Were you able to observe some of the procedures that Olivier went through to do that?
I didn't know. I mean, I was so concentrated, I suppose, on myself and what I was to do and his performance. And technicalities I didn't ever understand, and to this day I don't. I know that in the case of Chaplin, with whom I was incredibly fortunate to have worked, he had an assistant director called Jerry Epstein, whom he trusted completely. And Jerry was a kind of third eye in our duo scenes, watching us and making suggestions, etc., etc. I don't really remember anyone taking that role with Olivier. Perhaps they wouldn't have dared.
They wouldn't have dared.
I wouldn't.
Yeah. What was your first contact with him? Because I can remember seeing you at the Old Vic in the 50s, when you were in that wonderful company with Richard Burton, I think, and John Neville.
Yes.
Did you have contact then with Olivier from stage work and things like that?
Well, you could call it contact, I suppose. He was looking for someone. He wasn't. He wanted Jean Simmons to play Ophelia in Hamlet. There was a moment, and I think only a moment, where it seemed that she wasn't available. So he looked for young girls, and I went to meet him, and I tested with him for the role of Ophelia. I thought I had it. I was very naive. I was 16, and he said, "Oh, we'll work on this scene," and things that perhaps were a little unkind to say to a young, very young girl who obviously would believe every single thing she was told. And so I went away thinking I had the part, which of course I didn't, and he wonderfully well had Jean Simmons play it. Apart from that, I'd only met him a couple of times, social occasions or professional occasions. I didn't know him.
You didn't perform with him on the stage at all at that period?
I never have. I never did, I should say. Alas.
He was very active on the West End stage then, of course. Yes,
He was, yes. I mean, he directed a play that I did with his wonderful wife, Vivian Lee. But no, I never acted with him. I wish I had. I wasn't there as a student. I was there as an actress and a worshipper. So that whatever he said, I did, and but I wish I could say that I remembered more distinctly, and I truly don't. Clearly, there were directions, and clearly, for example, the way I spat at him twice in the same way seemed very staged, and rightly so. I don't mean stagey, I mean deliberately set in a particular style. But otherwise, with truth, I wish I could remember more of his actual direction, and I don't.
Those were two of the great spits of all time.
They were good.
And,
they were pretty good.
Were they directed into the film by Olivier? Was that his idea, or
no,
was it yours?
Shakespeare has Richard say, "Why dost thou spit at me?"
Indeed he does.
It's only once.
Yeah. I think it was the second one.
The second one was pretty good too, but that was his interpolation.
The film has a formidable cast, as we might imagine. I mean, the whole ensemble of great actors of the time, including four knights. And Cedric Hardwicke must have been brought over from Hollywood at that time?
I presume so.
Yes, okay.
But, I mean, the fact is, Cedric Hardwicke's one thing, but John Gielgud and Ralph Richardson are something else. And there we have the three great actors, English-speaking, I must remember to say, of the 20th century in one film together, which is pretty amazing.
Did you have much interaction with them on or off the set?
Well, John Gielgud, I did know. I had been in, as a young ingenue, in The Ladies Not for Burning with him. No, I did. But, there's very little. The scenes with Lady Anne and Richard are really, between the two
They're
of
fairly
them.
enclosed, aren't
Very
they? Yes,
enclosed,
That's right,
yes.
yes, okay.
I thought the Ian McKellen film was terrific, and that was an extremely modern interpretation. I don't think the one at the Old Vic was in any way a modern interpretation. It was just a mixed company of actors. We don't know what the voice that spoke Shakespeare sounded like. It's thought that he may have sounded much more, in fact, like an American than like us now. Certainly he didn't, the speaking was not like us. So I don't find anything offensive or foreign, let us say, about an American speaking Shakespeare. I didn't think that they were particularly good actors. So whatever they were didn't matter. I was not an admirer of that production.
Stanley Baker is consciously Welsh.
Well, he is Welsh.
In this version, of course, yes. And I think it's right. There is a theory that the Americans took their accents away with them from England
Yes,
at the
indeed.
time, and that's how we get them. So the mixture has never bothered me
No.
too much. I guess Olivier spoilt it for everybody else, really, didn't he? With
His
version?
shadow
Yes.
lies over the 21st century even. And I do find when I see the odd production of Richard III that I've seen, that the actors are very consciously making an effort to play completely differently, and that it doesn't always work. I think that it's psychologically extremely interesting of that kind of woman. First of all, I think that there are many cases where a young woman has an affair almost after the funeral of her husband. And as I remember, Dorothy Tutin in the Graham Greene play in which she made her name, that was a play about that. And I think that you're obviously at your most vulnerable state. I think, though she was very angry, she was extremely vulnerable, and he overpowered her psychologically, and was extremely seductive at a time in her life where she needed a man to cling to. She certainly chose the wrong one, but she wouldn't be the first to have done that. But I think that I've always found it extremely believable. I also think that there was a part of me that played Lady Anne, who made her seem rather fallible, rather vulnerable. You could see she had somehow a weakness in her psychological makeup. She wasn't a fighter. And she fell for a good line. A lot of women have.
Also, I find Olivier not unattractive throughout the film. I mean, there is some
That's
huge
putting it mildly.
huge charisma there, isn't there, behind all the
should
makeup
say.
and the limping. So
Of course.
it's not unreasonable, I think.
No, I tried to do all my life a balancing act, which didn't always really work in my favor, I think, between film and theatre. I never wanted to let theatre go, and I never did. Then I had a balancing act between America and England. I would say that it was a difficult career, but I'm glad that I didn't wholly give myself to films. Though I must say, loved doing them.
It's unusual. Theatre actors often say that they do films, they didn't like them as much as playing on the stage. But you
loved
enjoyed
them.
filming.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter which medium it is, it's the part and your partner and your director. And I was incredibly lucky in film to have great actors and, in many cases, fine directors too.
And you acted on the stage very much in America, or do you stick to movies there?
Not nearly as much in America, no. But I did some work there on the stage, but more movies, and then here, well, a couple of movies, but mainly film or television, yes.
And I know recently you did a Q&A for Limelight. There was a presentation of Limelight in Los Angeles.
Yes, it was.
How was it then? Same question, really, working with Chaplin.
Oh, no, that's a very different question. Working with Chaplin was my first film. I was 19, going on 20. He told me precisely what to do. Put your hand here, look up, say the line, look away. Sometimes I can see that in the film, and I wish that I had been allowed to be a little freer. I was not allowed to be. I did willingly and worshipingly, if there's such a word, what Chaplin wanted me to do. And in many ways, I think it worked wonderfully well. It was completely different to any other experience, as Chaplin indeed was completely different to anyone else, being a great genius. And what he said to do, one did, because obviously this was his vision of how the part should be played and his vision of how the film was stylized, and it was stylized. I can only say I did most willingly what he wanted me to do.